sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, so we're diving into this Liverpool match against Southampton. It was supposed to be like a total blowout, right? But we got to dig deeper, especially because this game had some pretty unexpected twists.
Well, yeah, the thing is, and we're basing this all on this live blog from the Liverpool Echo, this match might show us how Slot's managing style is different from Klopp. Like, is he really mixing things up, or was this just a one-off?
Okay, so before we jump into all that, let's set the scene a little. You've got Liverpool on this insane winning streak. They're unstoppable. And then you have Southampton. Well, they were basically trying not to set a record for the lowest points ever in Premier League history.
Yeah, you can't really make that sound any better. The pressure must have been huge, right? And that's important because it leads to a big question everyone was asking before the game. Would Slot rest some of his best players with the Champions League match coming up?
Yeah. I mean, on the one hand, they want to keep winning in the Premier League. But on the other hand, you don't want your best players getting tired before a huge European game.
And looking back, that starting lineup was interesting. It felt like Slot was playing 4D chess or something. He benches some big names, maybe thinking they could win easily. But as we all know, things didn't really go as planned.
Oh, that first half was wild. You have Liverpool, this amazing defensive team, and they let in a goal that the commentator actually called woeful. Van Dijk and Alisson messing up. I bet that's not how they wanted to happen.
It was a total defensive mess-up. You could almost hear everyone at Anfield gasp. And to make it worse, the Southampton fans are going crazy, chanting about how bad Liverpool must be to be losing to them. It's like rubbing salt in the wound.
That's gotta hurt, even for a team as good as Liverpool. And the live blog even shows us the halftime player ratings, and they weren't good. Some players got scores of 5 out of 10. That's like getting a needs improvement grade.
It's like the first half was a wake-up call, But here's where it gets really interesting. How Slot responded. He didn't just make small changes, he made 3 substitutions at halftime. That means swapping out 3 players at once. A really bold move. And guess what? It completely changed the game.
Wait, before we get to the second half, let me play devil's advocate for a sec. If Slot is this genius strategist, why did he even risk starting with a weaker team? Was he being a little too cocky, thinking they'd win the first half easily?
That's a good point. And it shows how tough it is to be a manager at this level. Was he overconfident? Was it a calculated risk? Or did he really think those starting players could win? We might never know for sure, but it definitely makes this whole deep dive even more interesting.
Okay, that's fair. But no matter why he did it, those 3 substitutions were game changers. It was like someone flipped a switch and Liverpool just came alive.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about who he put in the game, but the way the team started playing. We'll talk about that more later, but first, let's talk about those goals. So we're back, and it's pretty crazy how much one match can tell us, right? Not just about the players, but the manager, too.
Yeah, definitely. And before we break down all those substitutions, I got to go back to something the live blog mentioned, the atmosphere at Anfield. The commentator called it vociferous, and for anyone who's never been to a live match, that's a serious understatement.
For sure. Anfield is known for being intense, but imagine it after that crazy first half. The Southampton fans were going wild, and some Liverpool fans were probably getting nervous. That kind of pressure is unlike anything else.
I bet. And the players feel all of that, the good and the bad. Speaking of which, those halftime ratings were rough. Diaz running into dead ends. Some of those comments were harsh. But he still ends up assisting the tying goal. What's the story there?
Okay, this is where Slot substitutions become really interesting. It wasn't just about putting in fresh players. He actually changed Liverpool's whole formation. It's like this. In the first half, they're like a well-oiled machine, maybe a little predictable, but strong. And then suddenly, they're all over the place, like a swarm of bees. Southampton had no idea what to do.
Hold on, explain that formation change for those of us who aren't tactical experts. What did he actually change?
So think of it like this. At first, Liverpool was playing a very structured game, focused on keeping the ball, classic Klopp style. But with those 3 substitutions, Slot brought in more speed and direct attacks. They started using Diaz's speed and Núñez's strength to get behind Southampton's defense. It totally messed up Southampton's plan.
So it was less about individual players being amazing and more about how the whole team was playing. Like Southampton suddenly had to figure out a whole new puzzle.
Right. And that's what makes him a great manager, knowing when to stick with what's working and knowing when to change everything up. And then you add the individual talent on top of that.
Yeah, like Mo Salah, the goal-scoring machine. 2 penalties? No problem. The commentator said he's in a league of his own. But here's what I don't get. If he's that good, why not start him? Wouldn't you want someone who scores that much in the game from the beginning?
That goes back to what we talked about earlier about Slot thinking about the big picture. Maybe he was confident enough in the other players, but it's more likely that he's thinking about the Champions League. If he starts Salah and he gets injured, he might not be fully ready for the more important game. These are the tough choices a manager has to make.
Man, it's like chess, but with way more at stake. And speaking of making choices, what about Núñez's shushing motion after his goal? Any insights on that?
Honestly, that's the most human moment in the whole match. I can talk about tactics and formations all day, but that gesture, that was pure emotion. Maybe frustration from the tough first half, maybe proving people wrong. It's all speculation. But it shows that these are people under a lot of pressure, not just robots following orders.
Okay, before we get too deep into the psychology of shushing, let's sum up what this match really tells us about Liverpool with Slot as manager. Is all the hype real?
Based on just this one game, it's too early to say for sure, but we can see some things. He's willing to change things up. He trusts the players on his bench. And the result? A 16-point lead in the league. That's a big deal.
So maybe not just a new club. It's something new and maybe even better.
Yeah. And that's why these deep dives are so interesting. We're not just recapping the game. We're trying to figure something out. And this match gave us a lot to think about. Now, we still have those other articles the live blog mentioned.
Oh, yeah, right. We promised our listener a deep dive, and we're going to give them one. But for now, let's take a break and process all of this. So we talked about a lot, haven't we? Tactics, substitutions, even those shushing celebrations. But what does it all mean?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Is this Liverpool match just a one-time thing, or is this what we can expect with Arne Slot as manager?
I'm kind of thinking it's a sign of things to come. I mean, a 16-point lead. That's not just luck. That's a real statement.
I agree. And it's not just about winning. It's how they're winning. That triple substitution, the way they change tactics, it feels like we're seeing a masterclass in managing. But can he keep it up? The Premier League is tough, but the Champions League, that's a whole other level.
Exactly. Those European games, the pressure is huge. Do you think Slot can handle it?
You know, it's interesting. We keep comparing him to Klopp, but maybe that's not the right way to look at it. What if Slot isn't trying to be the next Klopp? What if he's doing his own thing?
Oh, I like that. So not about filling someone else's shoes, but creating something new.
Exactly. And maybe this match, with all the ups and downs, is the beginning of that story. The tough win, the changes he made, it all builds character. Remember what the commentator said. Even though they won, the atmosphere was tense. That tells me people expect a lot from them.
Yeah, and Liverpool fans are used to winning. They want it all the time. But maybe, just maybe, this new style, this flexibility, is what they need to stay on top.
It's kind of like a science experiment, isn't it? We have our idea. Slot is changing Liverpool. Now we need more information. More matches, tougher opponents, more high-pressure situations.
And luckily, there's a whole season left to play. Plus, we still have those other articles to check out, more clues to figure out. But before we send our listener down that rabbit hole, let's take a step back for a second.
Yeah, good idea. Let's look at the big picture. This match wasn't just about goals and tactics. It was about adapting. Slot showed us that even the best teams have to change to be ready for anything.
And that's something we can all learn from, right? No matter what you're doing, whether it's football, work, or just life, being able to adjust, to think on your feet, that's what makes you great.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, to our listener out there, remember that. Next time you're facing a challenge, remember Arne Slot. Remember that triple substitution. Remember that even when things look bad, there's always a way to change the game.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us for this crazy trip through Anfield. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into something that's sure to get you thinking. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep adapting.